Welcome back to Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. We mostly finished up Warp Room 1 last time. Yeah, we can't quite get that gem yet. But as you can see, off camera, I've gone and got relics on all 5 of these levels. And something that I forgot to show last time, if you press the R button, it tells you what time you need to get the next relic up from what you currently have. So, speaking of relics, I now have a total of 5. And because of that, something has changed slightly here. So before heading to Warp Room 2, we're actually going to jump on this platform, which will take us down to the secret Warp Room. So, the secret Warp Room in this game is nowhere near as much of a guide, dang it, as the one in Crash Bandicoot 2, mostly because, at least in the original version, the manual actually told you about how to unlock this one. And something else kind of interesting about the secret warp room is, if you look very closely in the background, you can see the lab assistants being put into the outfits for all of the different stages. So, it also reveals that they're all robots, something that I accidentally spoiled back in the Crash 2 series, but yeah, I always thought this was kind of an interesting detail. Like, the minions getting turned into, like, knights or scientists based on whatever time location they're going to go to. But anyway, you unlock the secret warp room by getting a total of 5 relics, and for every 5 relics you get, you unlock another portal in here. Some of these lead to totally new levels, like this one, and others lead to new areas of previous levels. But anyway, we're going to head into this one, which is another Coco Jet Ski level, Ski Crazed.
Why must you continue to be a thorn in our side?
Who? What? Where was I? Oh, Tiny was a good fellow. He hated everyone and everything, but a good heart nonetheless. Please be more reasonable with my minions next time.
So, the mid-warp conversation there, which you actually get for whatever the next level you enter is after beating Tiny Tiger, so I actually am showing that from footage from the last part because I got that while I was doing the relic runs, but it makes more sense to show it here. You're supposed to get that upon entering the first level of the second warp room, but of course you can go back to an earlier level and get it that way. It makes it sound like Tiny is dead, but obviously he's fine in Crash Team Racing, which is set after this, but I guess they didn't know Crash Team Racing would be a thing at the time. So this level is Ski Crazed, another jet ski level, and it's actually named after a game that Naughty Dog developed in like the late 1980s on like Apple II or something. Though in that case it was an actual like snow skiing game, not a jet ski game. But the name still fits. So Naughty Dog were the developers of the original Crash Bandicoot trilogy on PlayStation. The bomb bear cycles around that island, so you kind of want to make sure that you avoid that. These bombs can be a little tricky to loop around as well. And they also went on to develop the Jak and Daxter series, as well as Uncharted, and later The Last of Us. They didn't work on the remake, but they did wholeheartedly support it, which is more than can be said of what they said about the other post... yeah, they did not like a lot of the Crash games that came out, especially like later when they lost the rights to them, and they had very choice words to say about them, but they definitely supported the remake, which is great. So the remake was worked on by Vicarious Visions, who mostly do ports and licensed games, but they did work on the Game Boy Advance Crash Bandicoot games, which I personally always thought were pretty good. They are pretty much exactly the same as the as Crash 2 and 3, just fully 2D and kind of in a Donkey Kong Country style of like SNES-looking pseudo 3D. But I think it works, and their levels I remember being pretty decent. You'll actually see later on in this series that Vicarious Visions is pretty good at designing original Crash content, which makes me kind of excited to see them do a potentially new game, considering how successful this game was, but we really don't know what will happen. There's been a mobile Crash game, apparently, but I'm not really too interested in that. I've seen a little bit of footage, but anyway, I don't generally like to play mobile games. But I guess it is something new for the series after the Sane Trilogy. Anyway, not really saying a lot, that is a fast bomb there, so Gotta be a little bit careful of that one. I kind of like to be a bit cautious with these jet ski levels, taking things a little bit slowly. I remember this level's time trial being a bit of a pain, because this segment in particular, you've got to go pretty fast through it. Yeah, the mines obeying the water physics means that they do bob around sometimes in directions that can be a little hard to react to. But as I said in the previous jet ski level, you can kind of abuse the wave physics to get over mines in some ways that you weren't really supposed to. Especially in the original game, there was a way to cheese one of the, because this is actually far from the last jet ski level, there was a way to cheese one of the later ones that way that, I'll talk about that when I get to it. And that there is, yep, that is the Nitro Exploder, or, well, officially the Detonator Crate, but I call it the Nitro Exploder. And, oh, okay, yeah, that segment of mines right there, you can either go through them sideways, or do the dive by holding forward after a jump, but I kind of prefer to do it that way because it's, not exactly, like, easier, but it's a bit threading the needle, but it's still not quite as potentially temperamental as the dive method. But anyway, yeah, there are a lot of bombs on this ocean. And that's almost the end of the level, so let's just, there should be, yep, only 3 boxes left. I do not want to fail this late in. But, yeah, the thing about these secret levels, just like the secret levels in Crash 2... Oh, that was kind of close. Just like the secret levels in Crash 2, they're entirely for the box jam. If you don't get the box jam, you may as well not have played the level at all. But due to the level lacking a crystal, you can do the time trial immediately on entering it, and in fact it's possible to get both the relic and the box gem in the same run, I think. But I'm gonna go for the relics later. I love how they gave Coco her own variant of the dance. So that's all we're gonna do in the secret warp room for the time being. We'll be coming back there later, obviously, given there are 4 more portals that we haven't had access to yet. And there is a reason why I'm going to approach the series this way, doing 1 secret warp room portal at the start of every warp room. That'll become apparent when we get to the 3rd one. But anyway, here in warp room number 2, which has a bit of a Persian flair to it, we have Gee Whiz, another medieval level, Hang 'em High, a new level type, and this one has a colored gem, but we can't get it yet, unfortunately. Hog Ride, that level's actually a little infamous in some circles, so yeah, that's going to be interesting. Tomb Time, which has 2 clear gems, and Midnight Run. I'm going to switch back to Crash for this, because we gave Coco a lot of screen time in the last part. So, let's just do these levels in order this time and go for Gee Whiz. So, I forgot to explain the Nitro Detonator Crate the last few times we've seen it, but it should be kind of obvious. It detonates all the nitros in a level, which is important because nitros do count towards the box jam. So these boxes here can only be destroyed by a belly flop, or in this case, the supercharged body slam that we got from Tiny. That formation is mostly there just to, you know, show that you have that ability, but it's kind of weird. The supercharged body slam is honestly the most forgettable new move in this game because, as you can see, there were no, like, belly flop boxes before we had it, so yeah, it doesn't really even, like, change all that much. Like, I mean, I think you can get all of these with it, most of them at least, but it still doesn't really make it any more useful than it would be normally. Now, I do want to keep this mask because there is a later mask in the level and it's going to let us go invincible, and I haven't actually shown that yet. But yeah, there's more of these belly flop boxes. So I went right past them before, but a new enemy to these levels, hence the level's name, is the Wizard Lab Assistants. And they're a little bit trickier to get past than the Night Lab Assistants or some of the other enemies. They actually shoot projectiles at you, and those projectiles have a pretty funny death animation associated with them. They turn you into a frog, which explains why there are so many in the level. Now, the Wizard's defeat animation, also they've changed the goats up a little bit, they now move directly at you, rather than just side to side. But the Wizard's defeat animation actually leads to something quite interesting. So in the version of the game that I grew up with, which is the PAL version of the PlayStation 1 game, the Wizards actually had the ability to take 2 hits from you before being defeated, instead of disappearing into their hat and staff after just one hit. And yeah, here's invincibility. When you get 3 Aku Aku masks, you get faster, destroy everything on contact, and generally just get to rampage through the level and have a lot of fun. It's also beneficial to do this in time trial. You'll know this is going to wear off by the music starting to change, like that. So yeah, the wizards. I'll try and show on screen footage of what actually happens when you hit them one time in the PAL version. And considering that all of the animations were created by Naughty Dog, which is an American-based company, it's likely this animation was intended for the American version, but some censors thought that it was too risque for that market. But it is in the European version, so that's the one that I'm familiar with, which actually makes that enemy a little bit tougher in that version by consequence. But anyway, you had a bit of a preview in the flyby of something a little bit trickier than usual fare in this bonus. You do not want to hit that switch just yet. You want to bounce on this box, but make sure to hold the jump button so that you get more height when you hit it, so that you can get back safely, and then hit the switch. Because otherwise, those iron crates would have blocked that one, and we would have to redo the bonus. One thing I like about this level that always actually stood out to me as a kid is that it has exactly 100 boxes. In general, the box count on levels are a lot higher in Crash 3 than in Crash 1 and 2, because they were definitely escalating things a lot with this one. It was their 3rd installment, they really wanted to go all out. I know though that Cold Hard Crash back in Crash 2 had 155 boxes, which I know thanks to, well, yeah, that level being pretty infamous. Now can I, yeah, if you do this right, you can actually spin that goat right into this guy, who will also proceed to fly into the nitro detonator and cause a spectacular explosion at the end of the level, but didn't get it, but we still got the box gem, and that's all that matters. Okay, so about the wizards, I was actually not entirely right here. That animation that I was referring to is still in the American version, but you only get it if you hit the wizard with a certain power-up that we don't get until a bit later. So in other words, it's an Easter egg. The PAL version made that the normal behavior of the wizards, which by extension made them a little bit tougher because they always take 2 hits to go down. In the remake though, they always take 1 hit, even from that power-up we'll be getting later. So in other words, no HD wizard underpants. That is a really weird sentence. G-Wiz is a pretty simple level overall, just like, well, I would say most of the medieval ones, but we're actually almost done with them. But it is definitely a step up from Toad Village. The goats moving forward actually got me in one of my attempts. But now we have Hang 'em High. This is a level that you need to do at least 2 passes of to get everything. And we actually can't, as I said, get the colored gem on this pass, so we just have to go for the box gem. Fortunately, no gem is required to get the box gem. Also, I love doing a double bounce on these things by angling yourself just right. But yeah, this is the first of the Arabian levels, and I know I keep saying it, but these enemies here have a really, really good death animation. That's actually a Crash exclusive one for certain reasons that probably make sense. But anyway, this level's actually one that's a little tough to get the relics on, so I know it quite well thanks to the time trials. So, going invincible has an added benefit. These are hanging grates. If we jump onto them, we can move across them, and you can also somehow spin while staying attached to them. And pressing the crouch button pulls Crash's legs up, which had a use in Crash 2, but has absolutely no use in Crash 3 whatsoever. It's just there. But, if you get invincibility while on a grate, you climb much, much faster. And that is essential to the time trials for these levels. Yeah, for time trialing these levels, you need to not lose any masks, or you will slow down massively in the grate sections. You can hold the jump button to bounce a bit higher on those bouncy platforms. But yeah, as the level name implies, this level is very much based around these hanging grates. And here you actually want to move pretty quickly because otherwise that thing will turn into an iron box. I like the Genie Lab assistants there, they're pretty interesting. They sort of follow you a little bit, so they do adapt to your movements somewhat. I still love the glow that the crystals give off in this version of the game. It's just kind of a subtle touch, but it does look really great. Unfortunately, since you can only collect every crystal once, you only get to see it once. But here we have the bonus. We've actually got 2 slot boxes here. And a big set of boxes here that you'll generally need to high jump. Oh yeah, this bonus is pretty much all about slot boxes, so you need to be kind of quick there. Let's see if I can grab both of those like that. This bonus is a little bit easier if you come back here with the power-up you get for defeating this boss. Oh, okay, this one's interesting. You need to make sure that slot box is a TNT when you hit it. Otherwise, you will not be able to hit that switch box that's down there. Although I think you can actually still get those without that bounty box, but the bounty box makes it easier. So, slot boxes that can cycle through TNTs are often used in bonus puzzles, so that's our first introduction to a mechanic that will become kind of common later on. And here it's generally easy to get back onto the grate with that. And knowing when to jump off these crates as well, grates as well, is definitely helpful in the time trials. Now these enemies, in all versions of the game, take 2 hits to defeat. The first one causes them to drop what they're carrying, and the second one actually defeats them for good. You can get away with spinning that box off the bottom of the nitro, but I'm going to leave that second one, which will blow up when the nitro detonator hits it. Also, jumping on those guys actually defeats them outright. Kind of forgot about that. Okay, so that blows up those. These are the last 3 boxes in the level. Yeah, pretty simple overall. Just 1 more genie, and don't fall in the pit here. There's no pit there. And we've got the gem. I'm actually a little surprised that I got through that on my first try, because those levels have a lot of bottomless pits in them, and the great enemies can also be a little tricky at times. But sadly, we have to leave that yellow gem there for the time being. We'll come back for that later. And speaking of later, next time we'll be dealing with Hog Ride and the rest of this warp room, and also being introduced to the boss character of this one, who's one of my favorite characters for obvious reasons that you'll definitely know once we get to the next part. So, see you all then.
Whoa!
They didn't work on the remake, but they did wholeheartedly support it, which is more It detonates all the nitros in a level, which is important because... And you saw a bit of a preview in the flyby the platform did that there's something a little bit more tricky than usual to this bonus. You do not want to hit that. You want to first... Yeah, that's great. They did kind of go all out for this one, since it was the third installment in the series, and to them,